Welcome. Scott here. Here is a quick boss guide for the upcoming story chapter Act 3 Chapter 9 Part 2, Sorceresses and SeeDs. The synergy units for the event are the returning Sabin, Kuja, Quistis, and Lunafreya. The featured units will be getting their force enhancement boards unlocked. Sabin FR will be making its debut. Both Sabin and Kuja will be getting their C90 awakening and reworks. We will be fighting the Junction Griever and an Irvine Manikin. The Irvine Manikin has 70 million HP. The Junction Griever has two forms with 80 million each. It will switch to the second form upon deplete its HP to 56 million. Junction Griever is immune to max Brave down debuff. The turn requirement is 80. The HP requirements is 10,000. Before I continue further, here is a small disclaimer clause for the video. The guide is written based on the time that the event was released for the Japanese version. Please do note that it is possible that the boss fight mechanics might differ when the actual event is released in global. As we are no longer have Lufania plus fights, the boss guide will be focused primarily on Shinryu fights. In Shinryu, you need to understand the effects gained by the boss as the force gauge build up, its force ability and its force time effect. As your party has low force levels at the start of the era, it is highly certain that the boss force gauge will build up faster than yours. To have a better understanding on the basics of the force gauge mechanics and Shinryu fights, I have done a video explaining the mechanics. I have included the link to the video under the comments and video description for your quick reference. For this fight, the boss force gauge is broken into 3 thresholds. When the boss gauge is more or equal to 40%, the bosses will gain HP damage up and Brave damage up by 100%. When the boss gauge is more or equal to 60%, the boss party will raise their turn rate by 50%. The boss force gauge will build up faster as its HP is lowered. You can refer to the table on the screen for the percentages. Compared to the previous fight, this fight isn't really a dangerous one or toxic as the infamous Dimensions Transcendence Tier 10 fight. Both bosses have a simplistic moveset. As long as you have the tools to handle, you will be fine. At the 100% threshold, the Junction Griever will use its force ability, Meteor++ and activates its force time for 6 turns. The boss force ability, Meteor++ will result the boss recovers from break and unleash a guaranteed hit, AoE Brave plus HP attack. Upon using the force ability, the boss will enter into its force time where the gauge will start to emit a red hue with counter of 6 on its gauge. When the force time is activated, the bosses will gain an enhancement that allows them to delete your party turns whenever they attack. To freeze the enemy's force time, you need to use a wind magic force ability. Sabin FR will fulfill the condition. You can use non-elemental magic FR like Terra, Cloud of Darkness, Iroha, and Shirlata provided that you have used a wind enchant call on them. Examples of wind enchant call are Fujin, Bartz, Alisai and Sid. Now let's proceed with some party setup recommendations. Recommended calls abilities. To ensure that you are able to constantly break them, it is important to inflict defense down debuffs. Example of calls abilities that inflict defense down calls are Ferris, Titus, Jack, and Vanille. To speed up the fight, using HP damage up debuff calls like Karasame, Seymour, Fran, Ignis, Lily-Set, Maria, and Dark Knight Cecil are useful. Although a bit trickier to use, Aura type HP damage up calls like Kumari, Alisai, Priyash, Leo and Locke are also viable. Most recently C90 units have Aura type HP damage up bonuses. You can use Dissidia DB Call Finder to find out more. The Junction Griever will gain an aura that grants it a purple aura which will reduce all damage dealt to be nullified. The effect can only be removed when you use an AoE delay utility to delay it. For calls options that offer AoE delay, you can consider Cloud LDCA, Cypher calls, Quistis LDCA or Seymour LDCA for examples. Next, I will be covering units that will be useful to handle the fight mechanics. For any endgame fights like Lufania and Shinryu, it is always recommended to bring supports for their aura and buffs. You can consider bringing Selphie, Lena, Ishtala, Yuna, Garnet, Purim, Rem, and Ramza. Selphie can make your party hit hard with her guaranteed launch debuff, while Lena can ensure your party is always safe with her powerful HP regen buffs. Both Lena and Selphie are top-notch budget supports. Having a constant source of healing is useful here, as the bosses could trigger HP damage in consecutive turns. It is advisable to bring a damage mitigator if you doing a hit and counter run. You can consider Leela, Beatrix, Snow, Zack, Edge, Warrior of Light, Orin, and Golov. Evasion tanks like Leela, Golov, or Edge are great here, since all the boss attacks are non-guaranteed except for the Junction Griever's force ability. It is worth noting that the boss could use Holy, which could kill off-cover tanks, as it will set the target's Brave to 0 before unleash a single target Brave plus HP attack. It is highly advisable to freeze the Brave gain or lower the boss's attack before it unleashes the attack. In addition to the support and tanks, you can bring the following units if you have them. AoE delay is an important utility for the fight, as you need to bypass the thresholds at the 79% of the first form and 29% of the boss second form. Examples of AoE delay units are Emperor, Quistis, Cypher, Cloud, and Kais. Brother Summon also offers AoE delay utility. As the boss has a massive pool of HP, follow-up attack units will help to finish up the fight faster. You can consider bringing Yang, Seven, Kane, Freya or Sisnei for that purpose. In addition to the meta FR like Camlanot, Ursula, and Titus FR, optimal FR to use for this fight are Lunafreya, Sabin, Cloud of Darkness and Iroha. If you fulfill the 3 conditions of Ice, Disable and Launch, you can nuke the boss down fast before it could pose any threat with Camlanot FR. Charlotta and Lunafreya are powerful supports, and their FR phase can finish off the fight fast when you set up your party to their strengths. Lunafreya will make setting up your party for an optimal FR phase easily. Lotta can boost your allies with her powerful auras. Cloud of Darkness FR can help to push the boss away with her delay, and you can uptick her force time by spamming delays. Iroha FR has one of the easiest to fulfill conditions, as you just need to withhold 20% of your Brave and ensure your HP is max. Sabin FR grants the party ignore defense when unleashing their attacks. To fulfill the force time, you need to either deal wind or holy elemental damage. To fulfill both conditions, you bring 2 enchant calls, one for holy and one for wind, along with non-elemental units. Thus, it is a restrictive FR to abuse its HP damage up bonuses. As Shinryu is about building up your force gauge chargers units are great to deploy here. Characteristics of force charger are: the unit have substantial amount of instant turn non-attacking abilities. At max force enhancement level 30, one such instant turn ability can supercharge the force gauge by a whopping 50%. You can easily amplify your force time damage by abusing the supercharging mechanics. Examples of such force gauge chargers units are Pernello, Kryl, Charlotta, Braska, Ignis and Lunafreya. For other recommendations, you can consider the following. For tanks, you can bring Warrior of Light and Orin. Raijin could disable the boss turns with his paralysis debuffs and damage mitigation with his LD debuff. Camlanot is great for turn denial with his debuffs as well. The fight can be abused with the infamous Camlanot cheese strategy as long as you can meet the conditions. Camlanot and Orin has delay utility with their EX. You can bring the standard damage nuker units like Machina, Titus, and Terra and nuke the boss with a FR-powered burst phase before they could activate their force time. Similar to Desch, Reno is another great FR to be used if you are deploying the hit and counter strategy. Kuja is the other synergy unit who can hit for great damage with his hard-hitting AoE attacks. His LD can be abused as a nuke attack button. The boss can gain a purple aura that nullify all HP attacks until you do an AoE delay. Examples of other force-enhanced units with AoE delay are Setzer, Sync, Cypher, and Quistis. Setzer is great for this fight for his freeze joker to freeze the boss's brave gains from their brave hits. On the screen, you will see a timeline showing the HP thresholds triggers that you need to watch out for. Like Lucania, SHINRYU fights also features aura boosts for the boss when their HP are depleted to a certain threshold. The stats boosts are triggered at the start of the fight for the first form and 79% of the second form. Like other SHINRYU fights, the enemy's force gauge will charge faster as their HP depletes. As the enemy's force gauge reaches 40% and above, the boss will gain stats boost that raises their attack and brave damage potencies. When the force gauge reaches 60%, the bosses will double their turn rate. When the force gauge reaches 100%, Junction Griever will use its force ability, Meteor++, which is a guaranteed hit AoE Brave plus HP attack, and activate the force time for 6 turns. While the force time is active, the boss will delete the party turns which they are targeting. Both bosses have a standard attack rotation. The rotation becomes more HP damage intensive when Junction Griever goes into its second form. I will cover more on this in the subsequent slides. At the 79% HP threshold of the first form, Junction Griever will warp its turn forward and gain 2 consecutive turns with a purple aura. The purple aura will result the boss gain 999% HP damage resist. To dispel the aura, you need to do an AoE delay on the boss. It will use Morph at the 29% HP threshold, where it will cleanse all debuffs and restores HP to max and enter into its second form. In the second form, it will do another cut in turn order at the 29% HP threshold. Stand by your AoE delay utility to remove the aura. The real difficulty in the fight lies in the boss' massive HP pool. Beware that the HP requirements is pretty tight for a HP sponge fight where it features so many HP attacks. So stand by some damage mitigation calls and burst healing utility to ensure you are able to meet the requirements. Now let's proceed with the boss mechanics proper. Similar to any Lucania fights, for SHINRYU fights, the boss will also gain stats boosts and brave gain reduction auras when you deplete the boss's HP to a certain threshold. However, SHINRYU bosses will also gain HP damage reduction auras as well. The thresholds trigger for this fight is at the start of the fight and 79% HP threshold of the second form. At the start of the fight, it will boost its defense stats by 200%. It will raise its brave damage and brave gain reduction auras to 80%. It will also reduce your HP damage dealt by 50%. At 79% HP threshold of the second form, it will further boost its defense stats to 300% and the HP damage dealt reduction auras to 80%. To handle the defense stats boost, you can inflict defense down calls. To handle the brave gain reductions, you can bring a brave gain up support like Agrias, Ram, or Quistis. With the recent units released, you shouldn't have any problem in handling the brave gain or damage reduction auras. For HP damage reduction auras, HP damage up calls will only partly offset against the reductions. However, you can easily overwrite them with your party force time. As we progress through the era, we will gain access to units with FR that allows you to build up your force time HP damage bonuses up to 999%. Learning on how to take full advantage of the damage window in SHINRYU fight holds the key on how to make SHINRYU fights easier. At the 29% HP threshold of the first form, the boss will activate Morph, where it will cleanse all debuffs and switch to its next form. It could revive the Manikin if you have killed the Manikin earlier. Now, I will be covering the boss key mechanics in detail. As mentioned earlier, both bosses have 2 basic attacks. Let's start off with Junction Griever. At the first form, it has 3 skill rotation, that is Tornado, Quake, and Holy. At the second form, it will be expanded into 4 skill rotation, that is Tornado, Quake, Meteor, and Rend. Tornado is a single wind magic brave attack. Quake is an AoE earth magic brave attack. Now let's focus on the HP attacks component. Holy will results Junction Griever to set the target's brave to 0 followed by a single brave plus HP attack. Without any damage mitigation, this will most likely result into an instant KO. Make sure your cover tanks have enough HP to withhold their last stand requirements. You can make use of Brave control utility like Setzer Freeze or Cater LDCA to freeze the boss Brave gains. When it goes into second form, Holy will be replaced with these two attacks. Meteor is a reset break status, Brave gain of 200% of boss initial Brave followed by an AoE magic Brave plus HP attack. Rend is a reset break status, single target melee Brave plus HP attack. Now I will cover the moveset for its partner in crime, the Irvine Manikin. It can gain instant turns when it uses alternative shot where it will buff itself that raises its attack, Brave, and HP damage up. Both attacks of its attack are AoE. The Dark Shot is an AoE Brave plus HP attack execute 3 times, dealing split HP damage. The Pulse Shot is a single target Brave plus HP attack execute 3 times with 50% splash damage. Make sure you don't get broken by its attacks or the consequence could be dire. It is best if you can dispel the framed buff. Don't focus your attacks on Irvine as the Junction Griever has a bigger pool of HP. Now, let's cover the boss key mechanic, the cut in turn order mechanic with the purple aura. The boss will execute this twice. The first time is at the 79% HP threshold of the first form. The second time is at the 29% HP threshold of the second form. After the boss cut in their turn order, it will gain 2 additional instant turns and start to emit the purple aura. While the purple aura is active, you won't be able to do any HP damage even in force time. To disable that you need to dispel with an AoE delay utility. I have listed down the options on the lower corner of the slide for your quick reference. Brother Summon also offers AoE delay. If you trigger the thresholds while in summon or burst phase, the aura will only be activated after you exited the summon or burst phase. Do note that single target delay will only work to dispel the purple aura if the Irvine Manikin is already killed. I have come to the last slide of the guide. By now, you should have a FR. Generally, you just charge up your force gauge. Have the FR unit activate their force time with their force ability. Prepare for a big damage phase either through a unit burst phase or supercharge the gauge with Kane's follow-up. To build up the bonuses efficiently, you need bring a force gauge charger. Examples are Pernello, Kryle, Ignis, Charlotta, Braska and Lunafreya. At force level 30, this units can boost the force charge with 50% with their instant turn, non-attacking ability on top of the force time conditions. If you bring Kane or using Kane BT friend as support, have him activate his BT aura and let him stay in the air firing the lancets while your force gauge charger is spamming his or her instant turns. If you have Camlanot fully built with FR and BT, you can abuse his powerful FR mechanics by fulfilling 3 of the following conditions. 1. Constant launches. Selfie LD debuff, Kai's hero support or Sid Rain's LDCA on your burst unit. 2. Ice enchant. You can use Karasame LDCA for party ice enchant or bring an ice enchanter. Like Celis, Onion Knight, or Karasame himself. Snow also offers party-wide ice enchant with his BT aura. 3. Make sure you inflict a turn disable debuff on the boss. Camlanot BT is the easiest to set up. You can go through a setup process for this as well. When all conditions are met, the party can meet 80% HP damage bonus with a full party launch. We also have Lunafreya available where she will make setting up the FR phase easier. Now let's recap on the boss key mechanics. Junction Griever has a standard attack rotation. Do watch out for holy HP attack while it is in its first form. A brave control call will be very useful to handle that mechanic. The boss will activate turn cut in at the following 2 HP threshold, 79% on the first form and 29% on the second form. To dispel the aura, you need to use a AoE delay utility. If you trigger the threshold while in summon or burst phase, the trigger will occur after you exited the phase. Irvine Manikin can buff itself and gain instant turn with alternative shot. Both of his main attacks, Dark Shot and Pulse Shot are AoE HP attacks that execute 3 times. Junction Griever will cleanse itself and restores its HP back to full when it activates Morph at the 29% HP threshold. Now I will make a quick overview on the FR of the featured unit, Sabin. Sabin FR is very useful for himself and it is very hard to abuse for other party members. Dealing Wind Elemental Brave damage will increase by 30%. Dealing Holy Elemental Brave damage will increase by 30%. Sabin can easily fulfill the condition as he deals both elements. Looking on paper, it looks great with the high percentages, but in reality, it means you can fulfill either one of the conditions if you bring one of the elemental units. For example, I can use Kuja will deal 30% HP damage bonus, but I can't get it to 60% as he cannot be truly enchant with wind. Likewise, I can only do 30% HP damage bonus with Fujin, but I can't get it 60% as Fujin cannot be truly enchant with holy. To fully abuse the FR condition, you can bring 2 enchant calls, one for holy and one for wind on non-elemental party. However, this will severely restrict your team building options. The bright side on the FR is that during Sabin's force time, the party will do ignore defense brave damage. With this, I have come to the end of my boss guide presentation. Hopefully you find it useful. If you like the video, please give a like. Please subscribe to my channel for future gaming content. Good luck for the fight tomorrow. Bye.